FNAF VHS videos have become fairly widespread over the past several years. We've got the Spectre tapes, a variety of found footage and training recordings, 12-man tapes, and many, many more. Despite the vast collection of FNAF analog horror that can be found on YouTube, there's only one series in particular that really caught my attention, and still does to this day, those being the Battington tapes. Ever since I watched his remix of Squimpus McGrimpus's videos, I fell in love with his work. Something about his vintage models for the animatronics, as well as the VHS effects and distortion, stood out to me in a way that other analog videos don't. They have a way of putting you on edge and do it so flawlessly that it feels surreal. Even after he moved on to an original story with his FNAF VHS, his qualities remained, and somehow got it better than before. While I felt that way for all of his work, I specifically want to focus on one of his biggest projects to date, the horror attraction. In this dev analysis, I want to go over just why I enjoy this VHS out of all the others Battington has made, explaining what elements are executed best, and why they're so effective. Though if you haven't had the chance to see this masterpiece for yourself, I highly recommend that you watch it before seeing this video, because witnessing this analog horror for yourself is totally worth it. I'll leave a link in the description. With that said, strap in your seatbelts and prepare for a ride, because I'm about to show you why I think the horror attraction is the pinnacle of FNAF VHS. A quick disclaimer before I hop in, all these views are my own beliefs and are not meant to undermine any other series out there. If you agree with my takes, that's great. If you don't, that's okay too. But no, I'm not hating on any other FNAF VHS series because each one is special in its own way. With that, let's begin. First, I want to discuss the feel of the location where the story takes place, seeing as it's quite unique to anything we've seen prior. Having it be a Fazbear Frights, but altered to be a dark ride attraction is an awesome take and gives it a whole different mood. Contrast to the official FNAF 3, which has more leeway for visitors to walk around. Here you're generally secluded to a car slowly taking you through Fazbear's history. And couple that with the fact that the old animatronics, as referred to in the closed captions, uses various props makes the experience much more unnerving. Watching George go through the ride like this gives him the illusion that you're at a real attraction, and for a time it's pretty immersive. However, it's when we get to the ride, pausing for what the announcer calls a code yellow, that we're taken out and remember that it's analog horror. The immersion is broken, and as George sits waiting in stark silence for the ride to resume, you almost think something's going to happen, especially when he zooms in on the animatronics. But nothing ever does. Except, the segment has done its work. Even when the ride starts back up again, it's put you on edge and you eventually realize something isn't right. This feeling is increased when George announces he never knew about a drop in the track. Before we know it, the ride starts again, over multiple iterations as the video progresses, and each time the old animatronics act differently, starting to glitch out. What appeared to be an innocent horror experience has now turned to a real nightmare, one that George can't escape from. The storage room and the back hallway play into this as well, being wildly out of place in the building that's meant to only house the ride. It gives the sense that no one is supposed to go back there, and this becomes more pronounced when George says that the area feels cold. It metaphorically and literally detaches the hallway from the rest of the building, since if it was meant to be in use, it will most certainly be powered by the same air ducts and heating that the other places are. The whole segment was sending chills down my spine as I waited in vain for something to pop out and try to scare him. Other scenes like the power turning off and Springtrap suddenly appearing at the entrance of the attraction help convey that same cold feeling of being in danger, that there's something coming after you, whether you see it or not. It's something that I felt when I was watching the basement level of the Driv Creation story mode. Being in a place meant to make you feel unsafe is often the most effective way of creating a sense of fear that permeates through your soul, and that's something that always tends to have a big impact on me. And to be honest, this might have been enough to prove to myself that this is the scariest FNAF VHS out there, but trust me, I'm not close to finishing. Next, I have to introduce... No piece of horror media is complete without its sound design. It extends to FNAF as well. For context, check out this video by Scruffy if you haven't. It's incredibly interesting. Anyway, in the horror attraction, sound has a fairly big role. I mentioned previously the breaking down of the animatronics with each loop of the ride, and the fact that their voices change or glitch out adds to the experience in a way that feels unnatural. Vanessa's voice distorting takes us to a whole new level. Having her scream slowly transition into a robotic gurgle was a twist that almost made me recoil. Battington understands how and when to use sounds to enhance the horror aspects of his videos, and the horror attraction is certainly no exception. Now of course, there's also the wails and the shrieks of the animatronics that we've come to familiarize ourselves with. However, even those are exaggerated to the point where they're animalistic in contrast to the more robotic-based ones that appear in the FNAF games. Even having George talking throughout the video increases the dread of his situation, as the desperation and frustration increasingly grows in his voice. To that note, the voice acting was pretty stellar in this analog horror, and really helps convey the terror when you can hear it ripen the character's speech. It's not just sound effects or voice lines that help the sound design hit home. The music is also phenomenal, being subtle during moments of calm, and clamorous when George is in a state of panic. It generally picks up during points when there are threats present, like with the carnival theme playing when Springtrap enters the room, and with Mingle's audio building up the scene of George's death. However, to counter these tense moments, there are plenty of times when it becomes softer, especially with the music box theme in the 1985 room, which felt nostalgic to the classic FNAF games, as well as the low ambience as George tries to find a way to escape the attraction. Even the moments of silence play a role in accentuating the horror and making you wait to see something try to jump out. Coupled with the normal voice lines, the music slowly ceasing in later loops of the ride, will make it clear that he's dealing with something paranormal, and that the ride is no longer the way it's supposed to be. The horror attraction has a perfect blend between FNAF music and grilling ambience that makes it everything a FNAF analog horror can be, and still keeps me on edge even whenever we watch it months later. With all that said, there's one more big part to this that I still have to discuss. Tension is a pretty big part of any piece of horror media. FNAF fans especially will know that simply adding a jump scare or two isn't going to make a fully terrifying experience. Fear that slowly progresses over time, eventually culminating to a final jump scare, is what helps a horror game or video succeed, and this is something that the first FNAF balances out very well. I found that the horror attraction is exactly the same way. Now, the only reason I didn't include the tension with atmosphere is because I feel they work differently for each other in this VHS. While the atmosphere of the horror attraction tends to remain consistent all throughout the video, the former, on the other hand, has various rises and falls that makes it for a terrifying experience. In the beginning, I felt a strong sense of tension because I figured there has to be something to anticipate during the video. I mean, it's a FNAF video, so something always tends to go off the rails. However, when the ride starts and goes pretty normal for the first half, I feel that tension dissipate. By getting immersed into the experience, I can concentrate on what's happening in front of me instead of worrying about what's going to happen later on. That remained until the initial loop started, and then that's when I knew something was indeed happening. But it wasn't anything I expected. Now the tension I was feeling was permeating from different questions. Why was this happening? Why was George being targeted? And where were the employees? Something that started adding to the tension was that George barely acknowledged the fact that he was stuck in a loop at first. Based on the way he was acting in the beginning, you can tell that he tries to make himself out to appear unafraid, barely reacted during the ride through. Afterwards, he wasn't even acknowledging how the props were starting to change and malfunction. Although in his defense, it could be hard to tell what was supposed to be a part of the experience, what wasn't when you were there in his perspective, but in any case. It's only after he tries to go into the storage room and ends up back at the beginning does he start to realize what he's stuck in. Slowly rising tension resides now because he's trying to find a way out. However, all his failed efforts start to bring it back up again. His discovery that what he thought was an employee was really an animatronic is what really picks it up, because now you have to contend with the fact that what you thought you knew was almost all a lie. It becomes apparent when he walks to the back hallway and hears Vanessa calling for his help. It was the first time the tension really skyrockets, because it was a twist that had been almost entirely unexpected. However, and this is at least how I felt upon first watching the video, the tension lessens again slightly after he turns on his camera light to reveal the floating yellow bear head. This is only because it answers a lot of the questions that weren't solved in that scene. What caused Vanessa's voice to glitch out? Was a potential source of all that flowing blood on the floor? Well, it makes sense that it would have been caused by this animatronic head. And now the tension rises once again as it flies towards George, something else I hadn't expected. Though, I realized I probably should have anticipated it because that tends to happen a lot in these types of videos, but I was actually blindsided as it happened. When I say that no other piece of horror media has succeeded in making me curl up into a ball, I mean it. This one moment was what truly scared me out of everything that had happened to that point. Those feelings only barely died down when Springtrap finally made his debut. After that, the tension remained largely high for me. Seeing him progressively try to reach George, only to stop before he was close enough, had my heart racing. It wasn't until the car got to the end that I feel it reside. Unfortunately, it's common that the protagonist never gets out alive. This was also the case here. Watching Springtrap arrive at the entrance had the tension building again. It only kept rising as George ran back into the ride and was hit by another car. Somehow this moment had a bigger impact than if Springtrap or another animatronic had been able to catch him. Battington had actually shown footage in his behind-the-scenes video about how he originally planned on the yellow bear head to get him in the end, but that was eventually scrapped. I kinda feel that was a smart decision. Changing it to how it was now kept with that feeling of uncertainty. It was once again unexpected. It made it feel that the horror attraction itself was trying to kill George, rather than some animatronic or entity within it hunting him down. Regardless, the tension once again subsides as the credits roll and the VHS tape comes to an end. The horror attraction is one of, if not the most, scariest FNAF VHS tapes to date. The atmosphere fits the tone perfectly, the sound design is on point, and the tension has the right amount of rises and falls that keep the viewer engaged and feeling scared almost entirely throughout the video. Battington's definitely succeeding with making his FNAF content, and it's crazy to think about how effective his VHS videos have been at conveying fear and dread. For the time being, the horror attraction has remained my favorite FNAF analog horror video. I really look forward to seeing what he ends up doing next. With that said, I'd like to give a big thanks for watching this video. This is a topic I've been wanting to do for a little while, and I'm glad I finally found the time to make it. I know I haven't really been uploading dev analysis videos, but I haven't forgotten. I still want to do more. There's a video creation lore video that I want to get done, so hopefully I can have that out at some point. But for now, make sure to hit like and subscribe, turn on the notifications so you can see when I upload to this channel, as sporadic as it's been, and let me know in the comments if you want to see more of these particular videos. This is the first time I've tried making a video essay, so be sure to mention how I did, or what I can do to improve. But thank you again for watching, and I'll see you later. Anyway, the horror still keeps me on edge, even when I Hello?